Ricardo Baretzky is the president of the European Centre for Information Policy and Security. Welcome to RT. You will have heard about these multiple blasts, the shootings in the bar. We have the theatre hostages. Now we're hearing about another shooting. The number of attacks, which do appear to be coordinated, grows, and there's no end to it yet. Who, in your opinion, is most likely responsible?
Well, you know, as you know, it's very difficult to speculate. It's very dangerous to speculate, but they certainly have the hallmarks or the trademarks from at least some organization who is involved with terrorist activities. I think what is important that we have to pay attention. The format is taken on, and that the security forces have to pay attention to their position they're going to take in this.
One thing we can say for certain is this was a large-scale undertaking. We're looking at definitely 3, quite possibly 4 separate attacks. They've managed to lock down a theatre with close to 100 hostages. Reportings of numerous shooters, groups of half a dozen at least, spotted by eyewitnesses. This would seem to be a terrorist attack of one of the most sophisticated kinds. So, in your opinion, this would have taken a lot of planning?
Absolutely. These types of attacks, they don't happen overnight, and they get planned months and sometimes even years in advance. And as I've listened and been made aware of, that the question is asked why. It comes as no surprise that they're targeting days and events that is of significant importance to either government or multi-government. And in this case, I think is one of those classic scenarios where they have paid attention or not paid enough attention to the security risks surrounding today.
What do you make of the fact that the French President, François Hollande, was reported to be inside the Stade de France stadium with those possibly 3 explosions occurring just outside? How significant is that for you?
Well, very much. That indicates the first time, or in the first place, that information must have been provided to these attackers in some way to coordinate it. They can't coordinate and plan their attacks.
I do apologise. I'm just going to have to interrupt you because we're going to go live now to President Barack Obama, who is commenting on these attacks.
In pursuit of happiness, we are reminded in this time of tragedy that the bonds of liberté, and égalité, and fraternité are not only values that the French people care so deeply about, but they are values that we share. And those values are going to endure far beyond any act of terrorism or the hateful vision of those who perpetrated the crimes this evening. We're going to do whatever it takes to work with the French people and with nations around the world to bring these terrorists to justice and to go after any terrorist networks that go after our people. We don't yet know all the details of what has happened. We have been in contact with French officials to communicate our deepest condolences to the families of those who've been killed, to offer our prayers and thoughts to those who've been wounded. We have offered our full support to them. The situation is still unfolding. I've chosen not to call President Hollande at this time because my expectation is that he's very busy at the moment. I actually, by coincidence, was talking to him earlier today in preparation for the G20 meeting. But I am confident that I'll be in direct communications with him in the next few days, and we'll be coordinating in any ways that they think are helpful in the investigation of what's happened. This is a heartbreaking situation, and obviously those of us here in the United States know what it's like. We've gone through these kinds of episodes ourselves. And whenever these kinds of attacks happened, we've always been able to count on the French people to stand with us. They have been an extraordinary counterterrorism partner, and we intend to be there with them in that same fashion. I'm sure that in the days ahead we'll learn more about exactly what happened, and my teams will make sure that we are in communication with the press to provide you accurate information. I don't want to speculate at this point in terms of who was responsible for this. It appears that there may still be live activity and dangers that are taking place as we speak. And so until we know from French officials that the situation is under control and we have more information about it, I don't want to speculate. Okay? Thank you very much.
Any change in your plans, sir?
So that was Barack Obama there, generally offering support and his condolences, not wanting to say too much about it, except that he would be calling on leading nations to respond to this terrorist attack in the most appropriate manner. Let's return to our guest, Ricardo Baretzky, President of the European Centre for Information Policy and Security. Ricardo, the American president there, saying this was a terrorist attack and giving kind of a suggestion of who he thinks it might be. And I just want to add, there has been a French journalist who had a friend who was inside the theatre hostage situation, one of the hostages who actually escaped, and said that there were 6 gunmen inside the theatre and that they were talking about Syria in there. So it seems like politics is central to this, and the Middle East is going to play a key role in the reasons for this attack.
Yes, I certainly agree. The present situation, as we all know, with the migration, has put a lot of pressure on Europe related to the Syrian issue. The fact remains is that we are witnessing an escalation in terror attacks across Europe. And the fact remains that the security forces have to begin to pay more serious attention. And there needs to be a proper debate or restructuring of how intelligence across Europe is nominated and distributed. And unless this is going to happen, we could see these type of events increasing due to the lack of sharing of information on what we call real-time information.
OK, thank you very much to our guest, Ricardo Baretzky from the European Centre for Information Policy and Security. I'll just